next up, I told you we were going to rattle through this. There's loads for us to talk about, and as I said, delighted we've got so many great names with us here on this stage. We've heard from him already, just giving us an outline of the work that lies ahead at Schiphol. But please welcome back Pieter van Oord, who's the Chief Executive of Royal Schiphol Group. We're on these very low chairs with very long legs, so I'm a quarter Dutch as well. I think this is why I'm so tall. I've decided that. Pieter, lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. And you outlined some of the challenges there in your opening comments, and the airport very much under new leadership, under new management, under you. Talk to me about what, you sit down at the desk on day one, and what were the challenges facing you? What was in that inbox? Because there was quite a list, wasn't there?
Well, as I said, I started with using Schiphol Airport for more than 30 years. So I had, I would say, an opinion on Schiphol Airport. And I've seen that, Schiphol Airport was probably the best airport in Europe when it was built.
Was.
Was, yeah. And for some reason, we lost that position. So when I sat on my desk on day one, I thought, what can we do to bring us back at that old position? And so then you start talking with hundreds of people, and you ask that question to those people, what can we do to improve? Where did we made the good decisions? Where did we made wrong decisions? So that's been my focus for the last 4 months.
And what is that focus? When you sat there and thought, where do I start with this list? What was on the list, first of all, and how do you prioritize what you tackle first? Because I know a lot of it was really simple stuff, wasn't it? Changing light bulbs, fixing toilets,
absolutely,
all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. There is a lot. I would say a lot of it is easy to fix, but there are also many things which are difficult to fix. In a sense, they are, they will take time. If we talk about replacing our baggage handling system, we need more than 5 years because we first need to build a new baggage basement in order to build a new system. But things like escalators, light bulbs, window blinds, those things, you can really fix in a year, maybe 2 years, and that's also our ambition. What we really saw is that the business model of Schiphol has very much been based on growth and being the ambition, being the cheapest hub in Europe, and we were extremely successful in that two targets.
But at the expense of quality.
At the expense of maintenance and repair quality, and so it's clear that we've come to an end to our growth journey. We live in a different world than Dubai. I've lived many years in Dubai. Most airports in Europe are nowadays capacity constrained, and our focus is going to be on quality rather than on volume.
And that growth came, without an expansion in sort of physical infrastructure. I mean, between 2005 and 2019, up until the pandemic, growing at an astonishing rate without any new facilities, really.
That's true. That's true. We have had our last extension in 2003, and the number of passengers has grown ultimately to 71 million in 2019. And so what we're actually doing, we put more people in the same building, and it is obvious that our passenger experience has suffered from that. Feeling that all the areas in the airports have been too busy. Very much like what Paul was just saying about quick flows, and obviously you don't want people in queues, but a fact is there will always be queues at the border, because this is a process which we do not control. It's government controlled, but obviously anything we can do about queues we will tackle. But at Schiphol Airport, we need more space for our passengers. And that's what we're going to do now with the new building of the A pier, with the new building of the C pier, and other decisions still to be made.
Yeah, and those other decisions are over whether you have another terminal entirely, and I know that's sort of still ongoing. We'll come on to that in just a sec. But, you know, the ambition there clearly to return the airport to its former glory. What does that look like now? So what is the plan? Because I know, it's about 10 billion euros you're investing.
We have announced that the next 5 years we're going to invest 6 billion.
Yep.
And let me be clear, that's a record.
Yep.
We've never invested so much money in the entire history of the airport. And I've said we're not finished at 5 years. We probably need to invest another sum in that order of 6 billion in the next 5 years. So that means, you know, you're talking about 12 billion in a 10-year period. And I would say probably 50% of that is just maintenance and repair. Right. You know, replacing old infrastructure. The others is replacing piers, baggage systems, and we might decide on building a new terminal.
And, I mean, the challenge therefore is to be able to do that whilst running an airport at such capacity, and to be able to, you know, you're having to juggle where you can take things out of service. And I know, for example, you've knocked down a car park to be able to put in a baggage handling facility. You know, that, you know, a relatively, I suppose you might say, an easy transition because you can take one thing out and put something else in, but that relies on you making sure that things like public transport are therefore up to scratch. And it's all about juggling all these competing demands, isn't it? How do you prioritise that? If you say, yes, we need more passenger space, but what's got to give? Because you're at a finite amount of space.
Well, I would say, you know, that sort of decisions we have to make almost every day. Our first priority is obviously our passenger experience. You know, we don't want to actually interrupt the passenger experience. That Schiphol Airport is a place where we connect the Netherlands with the rest of the world. Having said that, you know, obviously, if you have a building contract within your terminal, and we have a major one going on, Lounge 1, you know, the passenger experience is affected. So we ask a bit of patience, and we explain our customers, you know, our airport will be nicer. Next year you will have a new lounge here. So you always have to find a sort of a balance in those decisions.
Are passengers patient? Because it feels like we've asked a lot of passengers through COVID, and then we sort of come out the other side, and I wonder, you know, whether people are still as forgiving as maybe they were around things like delays and disruption, but also things like building work, saying, look, come on, you've had quite a while to do this. Why now? You know, when does it ever end?
Yeah, well, I would say passengers, first of all, I would say passengers are coming back. For some reason, you know, we're doing good. We're doing some things good. Otherwise, they wouldn't come back.
You monitor this really closely, don't you?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Now, as I said, our prediction is next year that we will be back at pre-COVID levels. 2019 was our record year, and if we look at the projections, that's going to be happen. But we also see that passengers are critical. And why are they critical? Because they also have passenger experience at greenfield airports. Everybody has been in Dubai, everybody has been in Istanbul. I've seen the new airports in China. And if you've seen those airports, it's extremely difficult in a European setting, when you think about Heathrow, you know, to create a passenger experience similar to Dubai Airport. But I think we need to do it step by step. So replacing old infrastructure, which has been built in the 60s and the 70s, you know, terminal by terminal, lounge by lounge, you know, to replace it. And actually what we are going to do the next 30 years, we have no other choice, is build an entire new airport at the same location while we are running the airport.
And that's where the decision around, for example, a new terminal will come in. Talk to me about the timeline of that and what factors are being weighed up right now about whether that will happen, because we know planning needs to begin now if it's going to happen.
Well, there is at Schiphol at the moment, there are two, we're looking at more than two options. But one of the options is to build a new terminal, what we call Terminal South. This is, you talked about the parking lot, which we demolished and which is now greenfield. We have not made a decision on that, but we will probably move to a decision somewhere in 25 whether to go ahead with this project.
What would the time frame be on that in terms of, if it was given the go-ahead in 25, when do we see that come online?
I think somewhere between 2030 and 2035.
So long-term ambition.
Long construction periods at the airports.
And as we saw, in Paul's video and the One DXB thing, it's about all of the stakeholders working together to make this a seamless experience. And with discussions like that, it's around the design and the building, and then clearly the operations of it. KLM is a huge partner for you. I think 60% of your traffic is KLM. I was just speaking to Marjan on the other stage. That has its pros and cons, doesn't it, of having a very close partner like that, where it is so dominant. You need to work with them really closely, but if that relationship doesn't work, it can be detrimental. How do you balance that relationship with one key player like that, with more than half of your traffic?
Well, I call it a symbiotic relationship. KLM cannot do without Schiphol. Schiphol cannot do without KLM. That's a fact of life. And if you know that that is a fact of life, you better get on well.
Do you?
I do. Yeah. No. It's a necessity. Yeah. It's a necessity. It's like living in one home and in one house, and make things work well. And obviously, we're very proud that Air France KLM is our main carrier. They have their challenges. We have our challenges. What is extremely important in this is that you talk with each other. That you try to explain. I talked with you about tariff differentiation. Schiphol rates will increase during the years. It's obviously this is not a nice message for KLM. On the one hand, on the other hand, they get better passenger experience.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because quite clearly, particularly in Europe, you are being asked to do more and more and more, with regard to restrictions and emissions and noise, and that quite clearly involves, joint decisions with the airline and the airport. I think airlines feel particularly aggrieved that they are always squeezed on margin, and it's the airports and the manufacturers that sort of do well out of this equation. But quite clearly, there is an airline solution, which is sort of newer fleets, which means kind of fewer emissions, less noise. That helps you meet some of those targets around things like aircraft movements, and also your incentives. And talk to me about these, about putting the least polluting, least noisy planes on those routes, making it more attractive for them to fly, and disincentivizing the older, more polluting and noisier. How does that work?
Well, the system works according to aviation law in the Netherlands. We have a duty to fix our rate for a 3-year period. Before we fix our rate, we start a 6-month period, which is called consultation. So we consult this with the airlines. We always had a system of tariff differentiation, but in the new tariff differentiation period, which is 25, 26, 27, which will finalize by the 31st of October, we are going to put more effort on differentiation between different aircraft types. Basically, older, noisy aircraft we would not like to see anymore at Schiphol Airport. We have noticed actually they have already disappeared at Heathrow, and they're still at Schiphol. So it would be quite logic that they also disappear at Schiphol.
And it's fair to say probably more incentive at Heathrow, given the number of people affected directly by that noise or by that pollution, but quite clearly lessons learned there that you could learn.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you look at noise pollution at Heathrow Airport, it's massive compared to Schiphol. But for us, it's also extremely relevant. And we really think that with the new generation aircrafts, we have obviously recently KLM started with this first A321. They have ordered 50. Transavia has already started with the A321. EasyJet has already started with the A321. So we get an entire new fleet of the newest generation aircraft with the lowest noise emission ever. It's extremely important for our noise target, which I mentioned, which is 20% compared to 2019.
So, and that allows you, with that sort of tech, allows you to kind of meet some of those targets and those regulations. Talk to me about technology allowing the airport itself to expand. So, greater number of passengers, making that space work harder without necessarily increasing the infrastructure. You know, Paul there talking about the technology that will allow you to fit more people into the same space. Where are you on that transition?
Well, we are working very hard on all sorts of modeling. What we call, one of them is flow balancing. We have a number of locations at Schiphol Airport where our military police, which is protecting our border, has locations where they check our passengers. What we see, we have, let's say, 4 different locations. We see really that sometimes the queues at one of them are bigger than the queues at... What we now have, we have digital information, real time, where we really can actually balance those military police to the right location, actually to manage our queues. And this is just, so there are many digital solutions to help congestion at airports. Yeah.
That's what we all need right now, isn't it? Our time is up, but really nice to talk to you. Grateful for you being with us, and thank you for welcoming us back to Amsterdam this year. Thank you so much. Pieter van Oord, everyone. Put your hands
Thank you very much.
Thank you.